For almost all of human history, natural selection had this perfect system for educating children. It was a system that didn't need any schools or teachers. All it needed was one simple, incredibly powerful activity: play. But that amazing, time-tested biological drive is now under threat, and honestly, the consequences for our kids are just staggering. To really understand what's at stake here, we've got to face a pretty stark reality. The data on our children's mental well-being, well, it paints a very clear and very troubling picture.
Okay, so check this out. Using the exact same clinical yardsticks we've had for decades, we're now seeing that children today are somewhere between 5 to 8 times more likely to suffer from major depression or a clinically significant anxiety disorder than they were back in the 1950s. 5 to 8 times.
And even more tragically, the suicide rate for kids aged 15 and under has quadrupled in that same time. Now you might think, well, the world's just a tougher place for everyone, but that's not what the data shows. Suicide rates for older adults have actually gone down. This is a crisis that is specifically targeting our children.
So we have to ask a really difficult question. We've seen this continuous, steady increase in these mental health disorders over the last 60 years. So what else has been steadily decreasing over that exact same period? The answer, it turns out, lies in what we've systematically taken away from them.
To find that answer, we have to rewind the clock a bit. We have to go back to our evolutionary roots, because play isn't just about having fun. It evolved for a very specific and very critical purpose. You could say it's nature's masterclass for growing up. From a purely biological standpoint, play is anything but frivolous. It's the primary engine of learning. It is the mechanism through which all young mammals, and that includes us humans, are designed to acquire the skills they absolutely need for a successful life.
I mean, just think about it. Young animals instinctively play at the very skills they need to survive, right? Lion cubs play at stalking and pouncing. Gazelle calves play at fleeing and dodging. They are literally practicing for life. And human children? They are no different.
For the vast majority of human history, this was the default setting for childhood. When anthropologists study modern hunter-gatherer groups, they find the same patterns everywhere, this deep-seated trust that kids will educate themselves if you just give them the freedom to play. Children were in charge of their own learning.
And this just illustrates the result perfectly. Anthropologists who live with these groups consistently describe the children as remarkably intelligent, confident, and emotionally well-adjusted. I mean, it's a world away from the anxiety and depression that are so common in modern childhood.
So how in the world do we get from that natural, evolution-approved model to where we are today? Well, it turns out that over the last 60 years or so, we've been running this massive, uncontrolled experiment in play deprivation on our own children.
It didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual shift, a slow creep. Back in the 50s, kids had tons of free time. But then came more school, more homework, and this schoolish view of development really took hold. This idea that real learning only happens when it's directed by an adult. Childhood slowly transformed from a time of freedom to a time of resume building.
And the correlation here is, well, it's impossible to ignore. As the opportunity for free, self-directed play has gone down, the rates of childhood mental disorders have gone up in almost perfect lockstep. One goes down, the other goes up. It's that clear.
But you might be thinking, okay, that's great for hunter-gatherers, but is that model of trust and self-directed education just a relic of the past? Could it actually work in our modern world? Well, let's look at a school that proves it's not only possible, but it's profoundly effective.
So, schools like the Sudbury Valley School are built on these 6 conditions. And if you look closely, they almost perfectly mirror that hunter-gatherer environment. Kids are given real responsibility for their own education. They have unlimited freedom to explore, they have access to real tools, helpful but non-judgmental adults, and they learn in this democratic community of mixed ages. And you know what? The students there learn to read, write, do complex math, they get into college, and they do it all without a formal curriculum, just by following their own natural drive to learn.
The evidence is pretty clear. The decline of play is a primary cause, maybe the primary cause of the mental health crisis facing our kids. So, what do? How do we start to reverse this trend and give this essential gift back to our children?
This, right here, this is the heart of it all. Play isn't just about fun, it is the training ground for life. It's where kids learn to negotiate, manage their emotions, solve their own problems, and most importantly, it's where they develop a sense of control over their own lives, that belief that they can handle what the world throws at them. And that sense of control, That is the single greatest psychological defense against anxiety and depression.
Look, we created this problem collectively, as a society, and that means we can solve it collectively. It can start small, just getting to know your neighbors to build trust so kids feel safe to play outside again. It can be civic, by advocating for public spaces, like gyms and parks, to be opened up for free play. And yeah, it means being brave enough to push back against this constant cultural pressure that says more school and less freedom is the only way to succeed.
We've seen the answer in the data, haven't we? We've deprived our children of the very activity that nature designed to make them resilient, resourceful, and happy. So the question now isn't what happened, but what are we, as the adults in the room, going to do to finally give it back?